Welcome to American Dreams. My guest today is Alex Bean. Alex, welcome to today's show.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me.
So, Alex, you have a pretty incredible story, and I'd like for the listeners to share about your background on, what led you into building Divvy, and what the most enduring lessons from that you experienced.
Okay, yeah, let's jump into it. So I'm from Seattle. My business partner is from Seattle. So we met in fourth grade playing paintball. It's where you meet all your co-founders. And we ended up, living our careers, kind of growing away. We lived separately. And then he called me and said, hey, I've got this idea. And for me, it was one of those. The idea, by the way, is it's a credit card with a bunch of intelligence and software tied to it for businesses. And when Blake initially called me and said, hey, I've got this concept, we met. And in that first hour, it was like, we've got to do this, just because it felt like the timing's right, and Apple Pay and Venmo, that's all coming. And so it was super exciting. And we went on our journey, and it ended up having a lot of highs and lows, but ended on a high. So we'll take it. And we started in 2016 and sold in 2021. And it's been, it was a wild, wild ride for sure.
And in the process, any takeaway lessons about, what it took to build a company and scale it?
Yeah, obviously look back on those times with incredibly fond memories. My biggest thing is, if you're going to go do a big risk, one, I would say at the start, you have to have product market fit, and there's just people are constantly trying to figure out what does that look like. And so what I tell people, I'm like, look, you have to go to your target market. I use something called the Billboard Theory. This was super helpful for us to figure out product market fit. So this would be the lesson I would give to people, and then I'll tell you kind of my own personal lesson that I took from Divvy. So we use the Billboard Theory as a way of understanding product market fit. Easiest way to do it and say, okay, who's your target market? And for us, it was heads of finance, 50 to 500. If you can't define who your target market is, then don't bother starting a company. Second thing I would say, are you saving them time, saving them money, or making them money? And you have to say, what does your buyer care about? And you can't say all three. You have to pick one. So for us, it was about saving money. So we would say our heads of finance want to save money. And then we had to create the billboard, which was, all right, what is that little one sentence, max two, that we could say to our target market and tell them how much money we could save them? And ultimately, we could say, never go over budget again with a free product, and save on the software you're already spending on, like Concur, et cetera. And that would get their attention and allow us to have the conversation, and we would have pretty good success from there. So to me, when you're starting something, the only thing that matters in the beginning is product market fit. Now, where I would say that I learned, you say enduring lessons, the one quote I had at Divvy, because there's a lot of amazing people who did a lot of amazing things. And I would like to say the one thing I was known for was this line, which is, things are never as good as they seem, and they're never as bad as they seem. And when you're at a startup, there are days I'd go home, I'd come through the door, and I would just tromp into the kitchen, and I would tell my wife, I'm like, we've done it. Like, we've built a behemoth. We've got a unicorn. Like, we're going to be super rich. This is awesome. And then 2 days later, I'd come home and I'd be like, it's over. Like, I'm hopping on LinkedIn, I'm looking for a new job, and I'm just like, it's over. Like, this thing happened and it's over. And the ride is so roller coaster. You just have to realize that it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad. And you got to stay in that middle ground as you try to march up that mountain. So, yeah.
So, after selling Divvy, how do you confront feelings of emptiness or doubt that you can follow up with such a milestone for your next event? What did that teach you also about true fulfillment?
Yeah, it's an interesting. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So in my mind, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and it was like, whatever my definition of success was, I don't even know if I could articulate it. I think it was just to be, quote, successful and to start a company, right? So I climbed to the top of that mountain as hard and as fast as I could. And, you're thinking, okay, if I can just get to the top of that mountain, we'll have made it. And I was 36 when we sold. So, quote, top of that mountain at 36. And what was shocking to me is just the fact that I was like, oh, wow, like I'm proud of what we did, but I still have more than half my life left. I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I need to find fulfillment in doing those things. And you start to realize, oh, that was really fun, but that's not my identity. And it was really hard to rewire my identity, to rewire my motivation, to rewire what mountain I wanted to climb. And I tried a bunch of things that kept me busy or, yeah, I mean, ultimately like filled my calendar, but they didn't give me drive or energy or fulfillment. And so it took a while. And frankly, it's a path. I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I wrote a book on it called Factory for Good on just how to go through that process because it's kind of this weird state of loneliness and state of like who am I and what am I about and what's my purpose when that mountain you stop climbing that mountain the way that you did. So it was a process for sure.
Tandem Ventures, why did you start that after your exit?
I found so Tandem is venture capital, just so people know, and we're mostly a Utah shop. We work with some groups outside of Utah, but I felt extremely lucky to be in the Utah ecosystem. I moved from Seattle, came to Utah with the intent of jumping into the tech scene, started Divvy, felt like we had a great ecosystem of other founders and whatnot that grew Divvy. So my whole point, and for the first year after Divvy, when I wasn't quote working, the only thing I really did that I enjoyed was meeting with founders that were younger, and they would pepper me with questions. And I'm like, if I can give them any part of our playbook to help them be successful, I'll do it, and I'll do it for free, and I'm happy to do it, and I enjoy doing it. So when my now partner McKay called me and said, "Hey, let's do venture," I'm like, "Look, I don't know the VC game. I'm not some world-renowned investor, but I will work with the founders. I will help them. I will give them whatever answers I can, and make any introductions I can." So I started Tandem with McKay because I loved working with founders and wanted to have the next generation of Utah founders have more success than me. So that's been the drive for doing Tandem, and so far it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. By the way, one thing on that, Alan, is for the first 2 or 3 years of doing Tandem, I hadn't even like calculated what money could be made. Meaning, it is a for profit, but it was like I wasn't taking a salary. I just loved doing it, and it wasn't money motivated. So I'm not against making money. I just wasn't in it for the purpose of making money. Like I'm doing Tandem quite literally because like I want to help out the founders, and then that's made it more enjoyable than just trying to start a business to try to make more money.
So would you say your seed stage, Series A, what level?
Yeah, I would say we are mostly seed to early Series A. That's kind of where we find ourselves. We've done some pre-seed, but mostly I would say seed to Series A.
Okay. Now, how are you supporting the next gen of founders right now when they come into your life?
So, depends where they're at and what they need. The first thing I would say is be honest with them. So if I meet with I met with some college kids yesterday. So they're wannabe founders, right? They're not there yet. They're trying to start something. Try to give them real honest feedback on what will actually help them get to the next level and not just shake your head and say, "Good job, you're doing awesome, like keep going," but to try to give them product market fit instruction, help them through the Billboard Theory, and really guide them. Now, when they're later, it's going to be different. There's scaling conversations, it's introductions to top recruits. It's, we quite literally, we run something called Operation Leverage, where us and Jimmer Fredette works with us. For those that know Jimmer, he's a basketball player. We quite literally have like interns and team members on our team that all we're doing is like making introductions from our network to our portfolio companies so that they can grow revenue. So we're helping them recruit, we're helping them grow revenue. And a lot of the founders will just call me because they want to talk founder to founder and they need founder therapy or they want instruction on who to hire and when should they hire. And, look, I know we're not always right, but I can say this is what we did. This is what some of the other guys in the Valley did. This is what was working, what didn't work. And I think sometimes those playbooks are really helpful for these young founders that are up and coming and trying to do what we did, because we can say, look, we blazed the path to this space and we're helping them get to that spot and hopefully they can go way beyond it.
Let's turn the page into Factor for Good. Talking about your strength of maximizing ROI in business and venture. How does Factor for Good play into that? Applying the same disciplines to maximize return on impact.
Yeah. So let me just describe Factory for Good for a second, because and then I can help answer that question. So Factory for Good, it was written because I came from a family where I said a family of entrepreneurs where we've had success, and I've seen money do amazing things for family and for community, and I've seen it tear family apart and do all of the corrosive things that money sometimes can do. So when I was fortunate enough to step into that world and money hit the account after we sold, it was like, how do I make this a good thing and not something that destroys the things that I love? And that might sound crazy for people that haven't been in those shoes, but that's the reality. Is far too often money comes in and corrodes a lot of relationships and motivations, and changes a lot of things to the point where it ends up not what you want it to be. So Factory for Good, the whole concept is everyone here, we wake up every day, we have our factory, and we are working at our factory for the hope to print out money, because money is what provides us shelter and opportunity and safety and education, all that stuff. If you ever get to a spot where you don't need to keep working to print money because you put enough money aside that you can pay for stuff, that you need to retool your factory, Alan, and your factory now needs to become a factory for good, not a factory for money. And so we talk about what that retooling looks like, and to help people, you and your spouse and your family should figure out what your good is in the world. So for us, it was about, for me, finding my good and not just chasing more money. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, and say, okay, what's the good we want to do? And so it's my wife and I having that conversation. And from that, we can really start to build purpose, and we can really start to build our relationships, and hopefully a legacy full of values where we can pass it down, because we've been living them as we build our Factory for Good. And the biggest thing here, though, is with Factory, we actually want people to have a good experience when they're donating money to charity, not just like out of guilt or shame or out of like necessity, but we want them to say, hey, you're a business person, you built up a business, you've had success. But obviously ROI is a huge number, a huge acronym, return on investment. Well, what about return on impact? And if I'm going to go donate 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, whatever the number is, I want to make sure that there's impact. And so our team, we have a nonprofit team, is working with charities to say, hey, if we're going to donate the money, we need to make sure that there's truly an impact happening, so that we can report back to families and make sure that we're following business metrics in the charitable side of things. So that's what we're doing with the ROI.
I love that. Yeah, the building an ROI into philanthropy. I think treating it just like a business world is a way that we can measure them. Is there a certain type of philanthropy that you focus in on when working with charities? There's obviously a big array of different types of 501c3s out there, but is there?
Yeah. So actually, where we might be a little different than a lot of other groups is our client is actually not the charity. I say that our client, for a fact, our Factory for Good nonprofit, our client is the families. And what we're saying there is, like, we meet with the mom and dad, and we say, hey, come tell us what you care about. We go through this exercise where we ultimately try to narrow down between them, like, they care about education and humanitarian, whatever. And we said, great. Then we go and we vet out 20, 30, 40 organizations to come back to them and say, hey, these are the ones we think have real ROI, return on impact. So we don't care what their focus is. They could say it's climate change or social activism or whatever, and then we go and vet to make sure that that's actually taking place and that there's impact happening. So our client is the family. The fortunate byproduct of that is that there are a lot of people downline in education, humanitarian, et cetera, that we're going to point people to. So we really care about we're on a journey to try to grab 500 families that are giving annually with us, where we're giving back to them their impact reports and building their mission statements and executing for them. But ultimately, we as a collective can give to a variety of nonprofits. And again, we don't care where they go, but we want to make sure there's maximum impact happening.
Now, founders can be skeptical about blending profit with purpose? And how do you help them overcome that doubt and commit to a double bottom line?
Well, so Tandem is a for-profit entity, but Factory is not. We don't make any money on Factory. I pay for all the operations. I don't take any fees. So we're just like, hey, my genuine hope is that we can work with families and we can help them create a mission statement, involve themselves, their kids, and their future generations, and say, hey, let's go create your family's factory for good, and we'll go start deploying it for you. But that there is no crossbreeding between profit and purpose. This is a purpose, right? Like, we're trying to go out there, and the equation I'm trying to give families is, look, if you just make a bunch of money and hand it down to your kids, we've seen the math, right? You're in this business now, and how often does that screw everyone up, and how often does it end up and the money's lost or the kids are screwed up, whatever. And I'm like, look, if you help everyone in your family realize it's not just about consumerism, but you can go do good in the world as well, it changes the mindset of the next generation of like, oh, what's our responsibility? What is our opportunity to go do good things in the world? And that equation is a 1 + 1 = 3. And so we're just trying to help these families put that factory together where it can be something where their kids are more well prepared for any money that might or might not be transferred to them upon death or in a trust, etc.
All right, I'm going to roll this back to a final question here, Alex. At the end of life, how do you want to be known?
Oh, wow. I don't think too much about end of life because I'm still a young buck, I guess. But look, I feel incredibly fortunate at 36 to have hit the relative jackpot for me. Just super happy with, financially taken care of and with the kids, and, feel extremely blessed. So I'm like, all right, I feel this responsibility of what can I do for the next 40 years that will matter at all to making the world a better place. And the number that popped into my head after Divvy was like, wow, I'm fortunate enough to be this one person, but can I parlay this into significantly impacting 1 million people? So whether or not I do that, that's a great question. But my goal over the next, till I die, I guess, is can we go and actually impact? Can one impact 1 million? And can we get enough people on this train to make it worthwhile? And if I can even make a run at that, then I'll be happy with the efforts I put in.
For the listeners that want to find more information from you, Alex, how would they go ahead and contact you with either Factory for Good or Tandem Ventures?
Yeah, just Factory is super important. So go to factoryforgood.com. We have a newsletter. Happy that we have it's all free. So just come check it out. If you're interested in us helping you with your family, like reach out via email, Alan Factory for Good. But we'd love to chat with whoever's interested. And if you want to look at Tandem or have us invest in your company, you can look up Tandem Ventures, and we're here in Utah. You'll find us.
All right, Alex, I appreciate you being here with us today on American Dreams.